I'll now invite you, Mr. Barker, for your opening statement. Thank you.
Tēnā koutou e nei kai whakawa. As I said earlier, my name is Andrew Barker. I'm appearing with Ms Lanham on behalf of Dilworth School and the Dilworth Board of Trustees. I am a 52-year-old Pākehā male, approximately 6'2", wearing a grey suit, a white tie and a white shirt and a checkered tie of predominantly pink colour. I filed this morning with the registry an opening statement. Do the commissioners have that?
We have that. Thank you very much for doing that.
Obviously, I won't be able to go through that in detail. I was just intending to focus on a few points, summarise a few others, and unfortunately have to ignore other points in their entirety.
Well, because you filed it earlier, we've been able to go through it. It will be published, and we're grateful for it. But if you'd like to summarise, that's a good thing too.
Thank you.
And we have read it. Thank you.
Thank you. At paragraph 3, I just wanted to start there and just emphasise this point. The need to confront the history of abuse at Dilworth School has been one of the greatest challenges this school has faced in its history. The school was established to give disadvantaged young men opportunities in life that they may not otherwise have had. The fact that so many of their students suffered abuse while they were in their care reflects a failure of Dilworth in its core mission to provide them with a safe and supportive environment in which they can thrive. I want to acknowledge the bravery of those who have come forward to this commission and in other contexts and recognise the harm that has been done to them. That is an acknowledgement that comes from me as council, but it is appropriate that it is one that is made by the school directly. And Mr Snodgrass will be doing that tomorrow when he gives evidence to this commission. In terms of the evidence that the Commission will hear, the Commission indicated earlier on that it wished to hear from those persons who had direct knowledge as to what abuse happened in the past. And for that reason, it approached the former headmasters, Mr Wilton and Mr McLean, and the former chair, Mr Firth, directly to seek their evidence for this Commission. So I simply note that they are witnesses being called by the Commission, and Dilworth has not briefed them or instructed them in respect to their appearances today. The evidence on behalf of Dilworth will come from Mr Snodgrass, who is the current chair of the Board of Trustees, and he's going to focus on 3 key parts, really trying to describe and inform the Commission of the response that Dilworth has made to this history that has emerged. And I'll briefly overview those, but in summary they are what it has done to ensure the safety of its current student body and its student body going forward, what it has done to understand its past and the causes for that, and what it has done in respect of redress. In my opening statement at paragraph 12 and onwards, I talk a little bit about the background. I won't go through it, but I think there are probably 3 factors that the Commissioners just need to bear in mind, which may be distinguishing factors for Dilworth as opposed to other schools that you have encountered. The first is that Dilworth School is established by the will of James Dilworth. So as part of his will, he directed that his estate would be applied to form a school to educate disadvantaged youth going forward. And that is the origin of so much that happens at Dilworth, the will. It guides everything that the school does and is actually the foundational document for it. So that's something that's in slight distinction, I think, to many other schools. The second is that Dilworth is a solely boarding school. I think it's the largest boarding school in the Southern Hemisphere. So all of the students who have attended Dilworth to date have been boarders on site. And the third point is that they have all had their fees and all costs met by the trust established by James Dilworth in his will. So fully paid for care at the school. And I've noted there just so the Commission has the background, the breakdown, ethnic breakdown of the current school's makeup. That is something that has changed over time, and also the 3 campuses through which it operates. I then move to just give the Commission some information about the extent of abuse that has happened at Dilworth School. It is something that unfortunately Dilworth is in the process of trying to understand the extent of abuse. Because, as is the nature of much of this abuse, and Dilworth has to accept the culture of the school at the time, is that victims of abuse did not feel able to come forward to the school and share their experience. It is only as they find their voice now that they are able to do so, and they are understandably choosing to share those experiences with other institutions than the school, such as the Commission itself, my friend Mr Van der Plas's class action group, and also the independent inquiry that's been experienced. So this is something that Dilworth does not fully understand. It's the reason why we've established this, one of the reasons why this inquiry has been established, so that the school and its community can have a full understanding of what actually happened and why it was able to happen. But I have given you some information there to give you some understanding of the extent of the abuse that occurred. I note that 11 men have been convicted of sexual offences in respect of students at Dilworth School. We have statements from the police that have indicated that they have received 139 complaints. Those are statements we've taken from the press. They haven't been given directly to us. There are similar statements from the Dilworth class action group of numbers in around 130 people coming to them to register with their group. We have the listening service that has dealt with over 100 people so far, so it's another source. And I finally note that in respect to the redress program that I'll come to in a moment, 66 people have registered for redress with that program to date. So, as I said, we don't know the extent of it or understand the extent of it, but that is giving the Commission some idea that it is significant and substantial.
I presume some of those numbers would overlap, but
sure
we won't go into the detail of that at this stage.
Yes. I mean, that leads into the first part of really what I want to just focus on is the three responses of Dilworth to this. The first being that inquiry, and really at the heart of this inquiry is trying to understand what was the extent of the abuse and how was it able to happen. And you'll have seen from the documents that Dame Sylvia Cartwright and Francis Joychild QC have been appointed as inquirers. They are undertaking their work. It is not work that involves us. We receive information requests much in the way as the Commission receives information requests, and they are getting on with their task. The point I did want to make, I'm sure you'll at some point, or 2 points. First, I would encourage the commissioners at some point to just look at the website that they have established, because it does give a lot of the information about the work of the inquiry. And a similar comment relates to the redress program. I've given the links in my written submission. But the second point on the inquiry is I do set out in the written opening the terms of reference, because they are broad and they are direct and they will be confronting. You'll see that while there are matters of scope, such as factors that may have caused to abuse, so purpose, when they go into the scope, they're being asked to look at issues such as, was abuse covered up? Were the policies adequate? And so on and so forth. So the inquiry is seeking to look at the hard questions that need to be asked and answered. The second point I talk about, it really starts at paragraph 41, and Mr Snodgrass will be able to talk to this as well, is what has Dilworth done to ensure that the current student body is safe? And he details the history of that, and it was a history perhaps no different to many other schools as these issues arose, where policies are changed, efforts are made to educate and so forth. But certainly for Dilworth, in around 2019, it realised it had to do something more than this. And that is the time it approached the Australian organisation Childwise, which is an entity associated with the Save the Children organisation, and has done a lot of work off the back of the work of the Australian Royal Commission to redesign its school, redesign its structures, redesign its focuses, such that children and child safety become the focus of the school. And that has been a 3-year process, and there are, perhaps if the commissioners are interested in that, one of the documents that Mr Snodgrass refers to is a PowerPoint slide that the current headmaster has been asked to. He's been asked to present to other schools about the work on child rights. It's an easy way to understand the work that has been done. There's also a more significant document in the bundle as well, but that would be quite a helpful resource. But I summarised some of the changes that has led to in the school in my opening, just to highlight some factors such as full-time safety officer in the school now. There is a full-time basis with that being their sole focus. The rewriting of all policies that there are and rewriting them in conjunction with the students themselves so that there is input from the students in terms of their understanding and recognition of the interests that they have. That leads to this entire idea of student empowerment that started to work through the entire school, and examples of that are given by Mr. Snodgrass. The advisory groups for Māori and Pacifica communities, and you'll see that certainly Dilworth now is very strong. I think the population, the student body is 50% Pacifica now. These are core parts of the school itself. Training and so forth. Perhaps one of the novel ones is the ability to report abuse through an anonymous system. And I think I've called an online portal. I actually think it's actually an app on the kids' phones that they can use to report abuse anonymously. So that has led to Dilworth last month being accredited as a child-safe school by Childwise, and it's the only school in New Zealand to hold that accreditation. Finally, I just wanted to draw the Commissioner's attention to the redress program that has been established. Redress did start with the listening service that has been well used by old boys and survivors. That was established in 2019. It's had over 100 people who have been referred to counselling through that. But more recently, in August 2022, a substantive redress program was launched. It is being, I would again refer the commissioners to the terms of reference that are on, I suppose the website that sets out a whole lot of the information about it. But just a couple of words of overview is that at its heart is the establishment of an independent panel to provide redress in a way that has no connection to Dilworth within some broad guidance that they are given. And that panel, we're very fortunate to have been able to appoint people of the highest calibre to that. We've got Dame Judith Potter, Professor Ian Lambie, who's one of the leading clinical psychologists at the university with a specialty in this area, as well as Rukumoana Schaffhausen, who's a leader in the community, and the Maori community in particular. But the heart of the program is the discretion that they are given to work out redress that is appropriate for each individual student, each individual survivor. That will include apologies, it will include counselling and the like, and it also will include substantial financial redress. And I've set the limits out there. It is mostly, as for most cases, it will be $200,000, up to $200,000. And for the most severe cases, they have the discretion to increase that to $300,000. But they're given a very, you'll be familiar with the way these systems work, a lot of them are banded. This is just simply, there is a number, there is the cap if you like, but within that, the discretion is entirely up to you as to how you choose to mould this financial compensation. And I note also that the application process is very informal. There's a low evidential standard, the standard that the Commission was talked about in its report of a reasonable likelihood, and there's also assistance for them to put together their application through redress facilitators.
When you say report, are you referring to our Puritumu Toru Whanui report?
Yes.
Okay.
That was very. I mean, I could go on to it, but a lot of those
no,
ideas were actually
No,
quite,
but I just needed to clarify which report you were talking to.
Sorry,
That's,
yes, it was,
that's fine. Thank you.
The only other issue to note is just with the Anglican Church, and I'll very briefly comment because it's probably, again, another point of distinction for Dilworth as opposed to some of the other faith-based organisations that have come before you. It is a Anglican school, and the directive in the will is that students are to be educated in the tenets of the Anglican Church. But beyond that being the school, the actual involvement of the Anglican Church and its management is very limited in a sense. It has no governance role at all. Its role is limited to, I suppose, advice and consultation in respect of a chaplain, and then there is also this process of the annual visitation which takes place, which is an opportunity for the bishop to come and look at the school and take it from there. Sorry.
Thank you. I think we're getting a little signal for you to speak into the microphone.
Sorry. Well, I can probably save the transcript there, because unless you had any further questions, that was all.
I think that's a comprehensive summary, and thank you very much again for your opening statement, Mr. Barker.